And again, it was very successful. And another initiative which we had was something called ISEC. ISEC, I don't know if many of you have heard of it, is an international body where it encourages students and people who graduated to undertake training programs and cross-border training programs. So it facilitates this on a global basis. And Pakistan, in fact, there was an initiative in Pakistan earlier, but which had petered out. So it was the same group which again kick-started ISEC. And ISEC now has 3 chapters in Pakistan. And it has, it does training programs for cross-border. It would have trainees come to the United States or elsewhere. So they have right now 250 such students who are doing these traineeships, including 17 from abroad who have come in. So again, it's a very important, small, but I think a very concrete step that we have taken. So overall, I think in terms of, yes, initially there was great cynicism, but I think the results sort of speak for themselves. Very encouraging.
Let me ask another question. One thing that strikes me whenever I realize so often how insular America is, that we tend to know ourselves better than we know anybody else. And there's an expectation in America that everyone certainly knows what's happening in our presidential elections, because after all, it's America. And if you ask the same question on what's happening in India's election or whatever, we'll wait to see who wins and we'll find out about that person. And I know the World Affairs Council is one of those exceptions. You guys have both been intimately involved with the country. You've studied here and done other things. Is there one thing that, in this sort of situation, that you'd like to say, here's something, I want to tell you something about India that I don't think Americans generally know? And it's the same question for Pakistan. Is there something about Pakistan that I don't think that Americans generally know? And I'll give that to you, Salman, afterwards as well, the same question.
Sure.
It's a tough one without any...
Yeah. You want me to go
Go
first?
ahead.
Okay. I think if there's one thing, I think in the international arena, religion somehow plays a very important role in, it gets center stage in the news which we hear. And if you see in Pakistan, again, religion, Islam, etc., plays out a lot. But if you actually see during the Pakistan elections, in the last 7 elections which we've had, the religious parties ended up getting 3, 4, 5% of the entire votes. In the mid 90% went to what we call here nationalist secular parties, be it Benazir Bhutto, Nawaz Sharif, MQM. So for us, actually, elections is a very good X-ray of the society, what people actually think. So it's quite a contradiction of what Pakistan is perceived, the public is perceived as being very religious. Yes, religion is a very, very important part in individuals' lives, and it is very important in terms of an individual's identity. However, when you're talking about politics, you're talking about national issues, religion actually does take a backstage, and you have people actually talking about jobs, talking about employment, talking about social issues, justice, education, health, etc. So I think this is again a very important thing. And another piece of evidence is the person who founded Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He was a guy who used to wear 3-piece suit. Was a barrister, never ever gave any indications of using religion in terms of politics or symbolism. And here was these quote-unquote masses, uneducated, a lot of them followed this one individual versus there were a lot of other religious leaders as well at the time, and they completely discarded those people. So Pakistan actually is a the mass public are actually very pluralistic society, which does not get across in the international media, because yes, we do get certain violent incidences And so that gets flashed. And always I find, even in the international arena, a lot of these issues at the beginning were purely unresolved political issues. And once when they are allowed to be kept unresolved, and they keep on having this snowball effect, naturally the stakeholders will always draw on whatever resources they would get, and religion happens to be one of them. So it becomes like the tail wagging the dog. So we need to be very clear that if the core issues, wherever internationally, if we can resolve them and be clear about that these are unresolved political issues, and not get muddled in religion because of Islam, because of this religion, etc., these conflicts are there, I think we would be in a much, much better position to resolve them as well.
Suki.
You know, when the division of Pakistan and India, as we call the partition, took place, it was actually Pakistan was obviously a majority Muslim nation. There were some other smaller communities, some Hindus stayed behind and Sikhs, but in India, a very large population of Muslims and everybody else. So even though the Hindus are in a majority, they are something like more than 75% of the population. We have the 15% of the population is actually Muslim. And in fact, India is the second largest Muslim country in the world. It's a statistic which I think very few, in fact, more than in Pakistan. Indonesia is the first, India is second, Pakistan is third in terms of just sheer numbers. It's 135 million people who are of Islamic, who are Muslims in India. And it's, my own family, I come from a family which is political. My father was a three-term member of parliament and a governor of the state of West Bengal. He came from this party which was called which the newspapers love to call the Hindu Nationalist Party, the BJP. But it's really, we've seen that, like Amin was saying, religion in terms of being able to capture a large, sizable vote has not happened. The religious parties, including the BJP, the minute it sort of diluted its agenda, it became much more broad-based and much more inclusive. That's when it was able to form a government for the first time in its history, which was from 1999 to 2004. But till they had an agenda which was perceived to be narrower and sort of addressing only that of one community, albeit 75% of the population, it didn't get that. So we're really quite inclusive in the fact that today we have a nation where the previous, the previous president of the country, he was Muslim. You had the prime minister of the country who was Sikh, and you had the person who actually controlled the levers of power was a lady who was a Roman Catholic, born in Italy and speaks with a very thick Italian accent even now. She was the boss lady. So you had this amazing, so obviously we have a very great acceptance in our society of different cultures and peoples and races, and I think we just sort of accept that. And I think that is something that I think allows us, because we really are a very large country. We are a population of almost getting to 1.1 billion. We have 15 official languages and hundreds and hundreds of dialects. So we really are, and you split it down, and you have really got cultures and races, and foods are different, languages are different, dressing is different. So unless you had the ability to accept and assimilate, I think we would have had a catastrophic situation. So I think we're very fortunate in that.
Thank you, Suki. And actually, as Salman, it's funny. I was being very flippant with him. Salman's actually, played at the Nobel Peace Prize ceremonies. He's played. He's been invited to the White House. He's done all kinds of things in this country besides what he's done in his own. So it was